Should the Milwaukee Brewers do to Jesus Mday what they did to Jackson Chourio, and that is sign him to a long-term contract even before he plays a single Major League Baseball game? We'll get to that and more next here on Locked On Brewers.
You are Locked On Brewers, your daily Milwaukee Brewers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody, good to have you along. Chuck Freimund, Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Longtime sportscaster here in the state of Wisconsin and proud host of Locked On Brewers. Locked On Brewers, the number one Brewers podcast on the internet, and the Locked On Podcast Network, the number one sports podcasting network anywhere. It's because you great Brewer fans out there and all the fans out there who've made Locked On the number one sports podcasting network in the world. All right, coming on the show, you're going to hear a lot about this guy, and he kind of made an impact in the game today. Jesus Mday. We'll talk about Jesus Mday, the 18-year-old phenom. I'll tell you a little bit of who he is. I'm sure a lot of you guys know, but we'll get into that coming up here in a little bit. Garrett Mitchell made his spring debut. He's really interesting. He's a lot of injuries behind him. Could he make the opening day starting lineup? And an honor for CC Sabathia in New York, a Brewer legend, even though he was here for a half a year. All right. Jesus Mday. Jesus Mday it is. We learned the correct pronunciation. It's Jesus Mday. Anyway, he had two hits. One from the left, one from the right side of the plate. He had a ringing triple, batting lefty. And he also had a single batting righty. 18 years old. The history on him, he's phenomenal. I mean, he's just a super, super talent. When you watch him play, he's in the footsteps of a Jackson Chourio. Just the Brewers got themselves an amazing find right here. MLB pipeline. He's the third best player third best prospect in baseball. He's obviously the number one prospect in the Brewer organization. 18 years old. He was 0-for-6 going into Wednesday's action, and then did this, and then did this, and it was a head turner. It really was. Now, Mday's not going to make the opening day roster, although there's a person out there, a respected writer, who thinks that Mday is going to be here by the end of the season. Interesting. Now, the Brewers have never had but one 18-year-old shortstop in their time, and that was Robin Yount in 1974. Gary Sheffield came up when he was 19 back in 1988, Yount in 1974. Different times. Mday is speed, great bat control, terrific swing path, almost hit one out on Wednesday, can run the bases and above average speed, nice glove. He's got all the tools. And the question would be, and he finished the year at AA last year, and I assume he's going to start off at AAA this year and let him work through it. Saw him in Appleton when he was with the Timber Rattlers. And man, I don't know if you could say it, just like Chourio, and the Brewers did sign Chourio, remember, to that contract a couple of years ago before he even played a major league game. And now Chourio's going into his third year with the Brewers. And that turned out to be just a spectacular move by the Brewers. Again, in the past, when the Brewers have done something like this or they've taken a gamble, you always wanted to hold your breath. But I feel like those days, well, you always do want to hold your breath anytime, no matter you're a fan of what team when they make a move. But I feel like the Brewers are so brilliant in making these kind of decisions that maybe one day you have to do this with Mday. Now, the reason why I don't think about doing it right now is because there's a pending lockout that I think is very, very real on December 1st. It is. I feel like that's a real possibility. With the baseball union, you don't mess around, and they're not messing around. I feel like with other leagues, not that you mess around in those other leagues with the union, but I think the players' union is so tough that it really concerns me about where we're going to be a year from now. I mean, it really does. It scares me. I don't mean to start the podcast off like this, but this is one of the reasons why you don't sign Mday until you see what the scope of baseball is going to look like when we come out of that thing, right? Where we're at. And I'm not going to compare it to 1994, but after the 1994 strike, and baseball was hurting all around baseball. There was attendance figures were down, and it wasn't until the chase for the Roger Maris record brought people back to baseball. And in Milwaukee, they were drawing 5,000 to 6,000 fans. And that was that they would announce more than that, but there was 5,000 or 6,000 fans at those games in the 90s. Like I tell you, I was covering the team back then. There was nobody going to the games. And the Brewers' interest in Milwaukee was, even though they were playing right around 500 baseball, was zero. People cared about the Bucks and of course the Packers, but the Brewers were nowhere to be found. And that was after the strike of 94. The strike came, and I think baseball died here for a few years, and we were so fortunate to push that stadium through at that particular time of our baseball lives. So I really want to see what baseball is going to look like when we come out of this thing before we do any moves like this with Mday. Because certainly if there was financial health in baseball, if there was labor peace, I would say, go ahead. Yes, this is a for sure candidate. 8-9 year deal, whatever. I mean, you can never say it's a can't miss, but he's got all the tools, and he's, again, in the same breath as Chourio as far as a prospect, just a guy who you think, and you watch him play, and the times I've seen him with the Timber Rattlers, even then I thought, man, this guy he's got that it factor. He's got that special flavor to him where he is just terrific. And I thought the same thing with Chourio. So far, so good on Chourio. And the same thing with Mday, I should say. Him and Chourio are special talents. And if not for this pending lockout that could happen on December 1st, I'd be all aboard on that. Jim Callis seems to think of Jim Callis has been covering baseball for a long time. Before he was with MLB Pipeline, he was with Baseball America. He seems to think that before the end of the season, the Brewers would start the clock on Mday and bring him up here. I would be surprised at that. But again, I guess nothing surprises me, right? The Brewers have pulled off surprises where they've brought guys up a little sooner than we thought. And maybe they could and start the clock on him. I'd be a little surprised, but it wouldn't be the first time that the Brewers would surprise me on this. Interesting. Jim Callis saying that. And he's got his hands all over Major League Baseball in the farm system. That's what he does. 5-tool guy, Mday, 5-tool. And if it wasn't, God, I would, just watching him in the highlights today and watching him handle himself at the plate is something special. And Chourio too. You wonder how those guys at 18, 19, 20, how they handle themselves as big leaguers. The Brewers have very good leadership for these young guys when they come up here. And Chourio, had those role models on this team, still does. Although some are gone, obviously, like the Freddie Peraltas, but the Brewers have had real good success in having these younger guys watch the veterans. And I think Mday, hearing him talk, same thing. He wants to learn. He wants to become a better ball player. He hasn't talked about what position he wants to play. Obviously, he feels like he's a shortstop, but it's not. He wants to learn the game. A guy who's eager to learn, and all the traits of most every prospect that has come up in the Brewers organization in recent years. Guys who you look at and they say, "Man, this guy's." But there's two special players I've seen: Mday and Chourio. But I don't see the Brewers doing anything as far as a contract extension with Mday until we find out what's going on in Major League Baseball. And that's sad. Garrett Mitchell, on the other hand, signed, obviously. Could Garrett Mitchell be the starting center fielder on opening day? We saw him get into the game for a first time today. We'll get to that next here on Locked On Brewers. Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Good to have you along here on Locked On Brewers. This episode is brought to you by TurboTax. TurboTax, don't be sitting at that kitchen table here in the next couple of weeks trying to get it done, trying to figure out your taxes. Tax season does not have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on to your day. With TurboTax full service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert, start to finish, without the stress or guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, this form and that form, hand everything over to TurboTax, from W-2s to self-employment forms, and they'll get the work to you, and they'll get the work for you and work to get you every deduction possible. You can upload your documents, go about your day, get updates right in the TurboTax app. So for a limited time, you have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150 all in. $150 all in. If a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year, file by February 28th. And that date's coming up here later on in the week. Take the taxes off your plate. Get back your life. Visit TurboTax.com/local to book your appointment today with TurboTax. Chuck Freimund here on Locked On Brewers. By the way, our podcast, you get it on Google, Spotify, Apple, wherever you download your podcast. We're the #1 Brewers podcast because you great Brewer fans run all the audio platforms out there. And of course, our growing YouTube page. Search Locked On Brewers on YouTube. Hit the subscribe button, hit the bell. You got to sign into your account and all that. And then you hit the subscribe button, hit the bell. That'll alert you every time we drop an episode here on Locked On Brewers. Just become a subscriber. When we drop post-game wraps after the game, we do 60-second updates after the game. As soon as the game is done, I cover games. A lot of the home games I'm covering. So we'll have post-game reaction and all that right after the game. So don't miss that. That's one of the special things you get when you are a free subscriber to Locked On Brewers on YouTube. And also our Everydayers Club. I've been telling you about that, the Everydayer Club, our Discord server. You could lock in by joining the Everydayer Club right now, which gets you ad-free episodes, access to our group chat on Discord. This week only, use the promo code SPRING for a free month. The promo code SPRING for a free month of the Everydayer Club. Go to the link below in YouTube and in the notes section, or any of the notes sections on all the podcasts, Apple, Google, whatever. There's a notes section under a link there. Hit the link and check out Everydayer Club, commercial free, Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. All right. Garrett Mitchell, all smiles in the locker room today. No issues. He's back. Now you look at the litany of injuries he's had here. 2021 had the knee. 2022, the oblique. 2023, his first shoulder injury. 2024, the finger. 2025, the oblique and the shoulder. Man, that's a lot. That is a lot. But, he keeps bouncing back. He keeps bouncing back. We saw what he did the playoff game a couple of years ago. Hit a big home run. Man, if this guy could only stay healthy, because I don't think that Chourio is a future center fielder of the Brewers. Sure, he can do it. I would prefer to see Chourio in left field. And Garrett Mitchell, and you always got to put the asterisk there. If Garrett Mitchell is healthy, Garrett Mitchell could play center field on a regular basis. You hate to count on a guy who's had an injury in every year since 2021. But if, and a big if, the power, he could run the bases, field his position. There's so many things he could do. And Mitchell, you could put him, I feel he's a guy you could put anywhere in the order. You could put him in the leadoff spot. You could put him in the sixth hole. You could put him in any spot. I think one of the keys for the Brewers to have some success this year is the future of Garrett Mitchell. And if Garrett Mitchell can finally, and I feel like we say that every year, but I mean, if this could be him out at the plate, out there playing with these guys, getting at bats in the everyday lineup, you wonder if these issues that he's had, these injuries, will take its toll on him. Still a young guy. He's coming off the shoulder surgery, but I am not losing my faith in Garrett Mitchell. He's running out of shots, obviously, but when you're that talented, you're always going to have shots. And the Brewers would love to have him. He's just got to stay healthy. But I think this team could really, with what he does in the base paths, out in center field, everything. And again, you don't have to play every day right now. Obviously, you got Perkins out there who's terrific defensively, lacks offensively. But if somehow you can get Mitchell to play in a majority of those games in center field, I think this team would get a huge boost out of that. Huge boost out of that. Chourio, Mitchell, and Freimund, my preferred outfield right there. And then fill in the pieces. Days off, DH, whatever. Those pieces are movable, but that's my base infield, or my base outfield would be that right there. Freimund at right, Mitchell in center, Chourio. That's my preferred. Now, the Brewers might think otherwise. And they might like Chourio to eventually be their everyday center fielder, but I'm not counting on Mitchell just yet. Not counting out him just yet. All right. Other heroes. As the Brewers won a 13-12 game on Wednesday to improve the 2-4. They went off on a walk-off sacrifice fly. They beat the Giants. I talked about Mday. Let's see. Turang had 2 home runs, including an opposite field home run. Turang. I'm watching these games and I'm like, I can't wait. I mean, we got a few weeks left of these spring training games before we get to the regular season. Man, we're not even through with February yet, and it's like get me to the regular season, right? And I think the hitters are ready. I think the hitters, the pitchers, obviously, they're not ready, but the hitters, it sounds like they're ready to go. And it's a long season, but man, these guys got 3 or 4 weeks left of this yet. I think it's 3 weeks from Saturday is when the Brewers play their second game of the year against the White Sox. So long way to go. Got March Madness still between now and then, and all the state high school basketball tournaments in your state, but ready to go. Turang, 2 home runs. That's what else. Oh, Lockridge continues to hit. Double. Had a double. I've been focusing mostly on the offense right now. The pitching, I don't read a heck of a lot in the pitching in spring training because I feel like some of these guys are working on things. I don't get too high or too low, or how fast, how hard a guy is throwing or whatever. I let it settle in a little bit, especially here in the first week of these games. let it marinate a little bit. But I look at the offense and all that, and that's what we do. Don't read into any of this. Although I do think if there was an over and under on Turang home runs this year, I'd take the over. If it was an over and under on 20 home runs, I don't know if there is out there, but man, I'd be all over the Turang. If it was at 20, I'd be over on that, on the Turang home runs. I think he's going to take it. He did last year, and he's going to take another step up in his career this year. All right, we come back. A special honor for a special guy who was here for one half a season, but what an impact he made. That's next here on Locked On Brewers. This episode brought to you by Indeed. Indeed. Workplace chaos. I'm talking about you business owners out there. Is there workplace chaos? You have job openings you can't fill, deadlines stacking up, inbox overflowing. Well, the one position you have sitting right there that you can't find the right candidate for, well, this is a job for Indeed. Indeed sponsored jobs. Indeed sponsored jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for. Skills, experience, location. So you're just not hoping for the right candidate and hoping that guy just stumbles through the door or sees your post. Well, you want the right guy. You want him to fit in chemistry-wise as well. Here's a stat. The short time I'm talking to you, companies worldwide have made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching, more time interviewing candidates who check off all the boxes with Indeed sponsored jobs. Go to Indeed.com/podcast right now, and listeners of this show will get $75 sponsored job credit to get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? It's a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. All right. CC Sabathia going to have his jersey number 52 retired by the New York Yankees. Obviously, he left the Brewers after 2008 and went to the Yankees. The Brewers did offer him a reported 4 years, $100 million, $25 million a year for CC. But obviously, he got a larger deal with the Yankees. And I remember at his first press conference in New York with the Yankees after he signed there, and he had come here and he put the team on his back and he helped drag the Brewers into the playoffs for the first time in 26 years. So he did all that. He got to New York at the press conference, and not a Brewer at all, or not a mention of the Brewers at all was uttered, even though he had an amazing year. Second half of the season was picked up right around 4th of July weekend, and right after that, I believe it was Sunday night. And I remember seeing the smartphones had just come out. At least I just got mine. An alert came on my phone. Well, actually, I was checking the Journal Sentinel website, and they were updating it, and the Brewers were getting CC Sabathia. No way. And he came here and was just phenomenal. Fans loved him. He was a competitor. The Brewers got so much use out of him, and probably should have pitched a no-hitter here. He was robbed of a no-hitter against in Pittsburgh. I believe that was Labor Day weekend. But yeah, he earned his place on the Wall of Honor at AmFam Field. Some people, including my former on-air partner Bart Winkler, thinks that his jersey should be retired. I don't know if I go that far, but CC, I believe he's made a trip back or two. I think the Brewers honored him at one time at AmFam Field. But yes, will always go down in Brewer lore for what he did here. And was just phenomenal. And by the time the playoffs had come around, and they played the Phillies, and CC just ran out of gas. I mean, because they were using him on 3 days rest. He was coming out of the bullpen. They were doing whatever they can. They were getting whatever they could out of CC to make the postseason. And CC was phenomenal. Hall of Famer, getting his jersey retired by the Yankees. And I know they've retired a lot of jerseys, right? I believe all their single digits are retired now. But CeCe's 52 retired by the Yankees. Congratulations out to CeCe, man. Wish it would have been here, but there was no way the Brewers were going to, I mean, they were going, I always say the Brewers are never going to pay for pitching. And in this case, they gave him as a token offer 4 years, $100 million, which he loved it here. He loved the locker room. But he was not going to stay for 4 years and $100 million. All right, that's going to do it. Was at a restaurant on tonight. Used the golf simulator, went to a restaurant. MLB Network was on TV. And on the screen, they were showing the Mets and what the Mets, their acquisition, their starting rotation. Said Freddie Peralta at the top. Freddie Peralta. Shannon, my girlfriend, says, looks at the screen, Freddie Peralta is with the New York Mets? And I said, player, you telling me you're not an everydayer? You don't have to tell me an everydayer. You just did. All right, that's going to do it. But you could become an everydayer. Please become an everydayer. And you'll know that Freddie Peralta is no longer on the Milwaukee Brewers. And join our Everydayer Club as well. My name is Chuck Freimund. Thanks for watching and listening to Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day.